Welcome to the D&D Fitness Radio Podcast, brought to you by your hosts, Don Saladino from New York City and Derek Hansen from Vancouver, Canada.
So we are here with Dr. John Jaquish. And John, thank you so much for coming on. Derek and I were really excited to have you aboard today.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited.
Awesome. Can you tell our followers, can you give a little breakdown on what it is you do? Because I think it's very interesting, and we are yet to have anyone on our episode to discuss these topics.
Boy, what I do, my day, what most people think I do is I sell a piece of fitness equipment. What I really do is I invent stuff, and I spend most of my days reading research. I also have a good time. You can see that on my Instagram. The Instagram is really funny because you look at some people and it's like, is this guy always on a beach? Which is, I take a lot of pictures on beaches, but the answer is no, I'm not always on a beach. I spend a lot more time reading research, trying to come up with a better understanding, a better way to document things, a better way to explain to the fitness industry. There's research that's been made available to the fitness industry for 40 years, and it's been ignored because, I think two reasons. One is the general reader is not intelligent enough to understand what the hell it's about, and reading research is not easy either. You really got to decide you want to understand something. The other thing is the facts, in quotes, that have been given to us in the fitness industry all have to do with selling something. Now, I am no different. I am making people aware of different facts, and I am selling a product. But what they're saying is inaccurate, and I would say fraudulent. When treadmills first came out, every couple years, the treadmill said for the same exact workout, you were burning a few hundred more calories. Now you run for 20 minutes on a treadmill, it's like you burn 1,200 calories. Yeah, not even close.
Right.
Yeah, maybe 1/8 that. So, and that's how you sell, more treadmills. It's like somebody gets on the next newer treadmill and they're like, I got a much better workout from this. Look at these numbers. It's just bullshit.
Yeah, so, Dr. Jaquish, not to cut in on that, but you actually just reminded me of the golf club industry now, because what they've been doing. So I have, in my business, I have a little bit of a golf background. I owned a golf training facility in New York City for 15 years. My brother was a professional golfer, turned back amateur. And what the club company started doing is they started changing. Pretty much changing the lofts and the degrees on clubs. So if you were able to hit, say, your 8-iron 165 yards, they now are taking the 7-iron and they're printing 8-iron on it, because that 7-iron, you were really hitting 175, 180 yards. So now you're picking up an 8-iron going, wow, I used to hit this 165 yards, but I'm hitting this almost 180 yards. I'm going to buy this one. It's crooked. Everyone knows it and everyone talks about it, but you're discussing the same thing. Is that correct?
Same thing. Oh, women's fashion. My mother spent a lot of time as a fashion designer. She taught fashion design at University of Virginia. And she talks about vanity sizing. This is great. So, the big girls don't want to buy the XL
right.
or the size 12 or, size 16 or whatever. So they just make the sizes go up. And so that's where a size 0 came from, because there was never any such thing as a size 0. And now they have -1. So they just shifted everything to the right. So all the chunky monkey girls are happy. Okay. Did you lose weight because you now shop at the Gap? No, you didn't. So, okay. Sorry, ladies. But that's what, goes on in the fitness industry. And, the title of my book, Weightlifting is a Waste of Time. And down here it says, and so is cardio. I say that because if your goal is to lose body fat, cardio is not the thing. Because you upregulate cortisol chronically. Cortisol sacrifices muscular tissue, not fat. It protects body fat. So you'll stay fatter longer if you do a lot of cardio, which makes sense because you're stimulating the body to go long distances on a small amount of fuel. So it's going to conserve fuel and reduce the size of the engine. That's why it does that. Makes perfect logical sense, but the fitness industry has been teaching the opposite. Why? Because they buy treadmills. That's why.
I think there's a little bit, I think there's some value into that, Derek. I mean, I do believe that the more cardio is not necessarily the better. I mean, it's a challenging discussion. I mean, I've been a coach, Dr. Jaquish, for 22 years. And, you know, when someone has a body composition goal in mind and they're like, well, do I just do more cardio? It's never like an easy question. Like, you're almost sometimes telling them, you know what? You're doing 2 days. You can throw in a third day of recovery cardio. We can get some high intensity training in there to help maybe, you know, improve, you know, cardiovascular health. Yeah.
High intensity is totally different than steady state.
Yeah. So, yeah. So can we, and I know Derek's got a bunch of questions for you, but can you start talking about, you just very quickly just said, well, high intensity is much different than steady state. Talk to us about that a little bit.
So stabilization firing, which happens with anything that's done in speed. So if you look at the head, the skull of a marathon runner, as they're running, their head's bobbing up and down. If you look at the skull of a sprinter, it looks like it was lined up by a laser. So there's a lot more stabilization. Well, there is stabilization firing with the sprint, where there is almost none with the distance runner. And there's a major hormonal difference in what's going on while that exercise is happening and the knock-on effect of afterward. So what ends up happening is that stabilization firing that makes their skull stable with the sprinter is stabilizing their whole body. That has that afferent activation in mass has a growth hormone effect. And the first and hopefully only meta-analysis I ever authored with Henry Elkire. He's a co-author on the book also. And we wrote a meta-analysis together. By the way, I never did one of those. They're horrible. So much work. But we demonstrated that stabilization firing and stabilization firing plus load had a tremendous effect on growth hormone, whereas activities that have no stabilization firing have no effect on growth hormone. So like, for example, a free weight squat, which is a lot more like a sprint because you get the stabilization effect. I call it the sprint effect. Whereas a leg press, so somebody can go on a leg press and use 3 times the amount of weight that they would normally do in a squat. Now, of course, people think like, oh yeah, I leg press like 2,000 pounds. Like, no, you really don't, because it's at a 45-degree angle. Most of the weight's going into the ground, but you know, try telling that to the typical fitness guy. So, you know, I'm talking about the sideways hat guy with like a stainless steel ring on every finger, that guy. So yeah, those guys should just be pushed out into traffic. So when you look at the amount of stabilization firing, especially when you load it, you can have upwards of 2,000. I think the best study we identified was 2,600% increase in growth hormone. This is naturally created by the body with stabilization plus loading. And then, of course, all other interventions that looked at non-stability, like the leg press, nothing, no change in growth hormone at all. So it's the same reason why high intensity, I mean, I don't like the word high intensity cardio because that's not really cardio. It's high intensity training, right?
That's fair.
So,
that's fair.
Yeah. So when somebody does like sprints, catches a breath, sprints, catches a breath, they're going to get a huge growth hormone effect. Also, remember the weight they're dealing with as they sprint is incredible because every toe strike can be 3 times their body weight. That's huge. Like, sprinters don't squat a lot. They don't really need to. You can build powerful legs by running really fast because you're dealing with huge weight. It just doesn't look that way. But the momentum plus the toe strike and your own body weight factored in there is an incredible amount of force.
Well, what are some of the, because you've obviously done a lot of research on this. So There becomes a really gray area. The first argument I get into with people is I think 90% of the people out there think they're doing high intensity interval training, and they're not. They're just in a way, when you break it down, I don't look at a 4-to-1 work to rest ratio as high intensity. People are just tired and they're moving slowly and they're not able to create that maximal amount of output that I think high intensity interval training requires. They're more, if you're measuring their heart rate, they're more in a steady state range, in that 140, 150 range for, a 35, 40-minute class. And they're, again, this is what pisses me off about the fitness industry is that, they're marketing that as a high intensity class. It's not a high intensity class by no means. And if you tried to get that individual to perform anything high intensity, they couldn't, because they're used to moving around at that speed and with that output. Now, in your opinion, you're talking a lot about, growth hormone response and high intensity interval training, which, I didn't know the exact science on that, but everything you're saying right now, I agree with. I'm like, okay, no, this is all incredibly smart. The leg press, the squat, I get it. Can you break down some specific numbers and research on, maybe if someone is to do high intensity interval training, what's the sweet spot? What range do they want to be in? Obviously, there's not going to be an exact number, but there's going to be a range. Can you give us that? Maybe work to rest ratio, anything specific?
I'd be the wrong guy to ask for that.
Okay.
Yeah, there's I'm trying to think which scientists I know that would be fit to answer that one. Yeah, like what I'm trying to do in that section of the book is point out you don't need to worry about cardio necessarily. And also people who do strength training have an equal cardiac health effect. Now, I will say there's a myth with strength athletes that they have poor cardio. Like I tell the story really often with a friend in the Munich airport. And the Munich airport is like the airport of stairs. I think they tried to break the world record for how many stairs you had to go up and down to change planes. It's just ridiculous. You're just going up and down like, I don't know, 6 times. It's so dumb. But I don't know. There's not a lot of fat Germans, so maybe they're onto something. But I had to change planes, and it was a particular time, and I was with a guy that weighs about 100 pounds less than I do. And we're both running up and down these stairs, and I'm like covered in sweat. And he's like, oh, your cardio is terrible. And he's a distance runner. And I'm like, no. When I contract my quadriceps, I have to push blood into my quadriceps, and mine are like 5 times bigger than yours are. So it's just a bigger engine. It's like, is a Formula One car a bad car because it burns a lot of gas? Not if you want to go fast. If you're trying to conserve gasoline, then yeah, it's a terrible car. So it all depends on what you want. We become very purpose-built with our training. So I have great cardiovascular health. In fact, I have a standard Western doctor who doesn't understand anything about exercise at all, who are my general practitioner, and I keep him around because he's so clueless, because I want to see what physicians like that ask or wonder about or like how bad can it get sort of thing. So this guy, every time he does cardiac work on me, he goes, are you running marathons? Your cardiac health is really good. And I'm like, look at me. Do I look like I run marathons? 240 pounds. He just like, that doesn't mean anything to him. He just knows I have great cardiovascular health. Like they do an echo on me or they do anything. And I'm great. So yeah, that's why I focused what I was trying to convey to other people, more like, do I need cardio for weight loss? Or if I don't need cardio for weight loss, do I need it for health? And I wanted to address that also.
Yeah, sorry, I just wanted to jump in. Like, I've been putting together my online course on running and sprinting, and I'm using animal models too. And I have all these videos of cheetahs. And like you said, the head does not move. It's just
lined up with a laser.
Yeah, it's amazing. And I'm just watching what's happening behind the head. And it's just like, it's going so fast, right? 75 miles per hour. And then even some of the stuff that I've been doing, like I was a sprinter and a long jumper. And now like I'm doing longer runs with my wife, and it kills me. It mentally just kills me. And when we go out and do sprints, I feel fantastic. If I do anything longer distance, I want to shoot myself. So it's very interesting, right?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't want to distance. Well, you should tell her that Dr. Jaquish said you can't.
I need
not your fault.
A little prescription for that.
Yeah, I mean, this is relationship advice. Just blame me. She doesn't know me. She can troll me on the internet. Everybody else is.
So let me, yeah. So what do you attest your cardiovascular health to then? So you say the engine's fantastic, but you don't do any cardio. Is it from all the? Or is it more the
well, there was a great study. Like I don't know if you guys know who Mel Siff was, but he kept showing this study about longshoremen in the old days, and they would always just lift things, right? And they said these guys had no problems with cardiac issues because of all the lifting and stuff they were doing. So there's definitely some precedence for this.
There's a meta-analysis that I reference in the book, as well as a couple other studies that didn't end up making it. They were published after the meta-analysis, talking about how strength training is equal or better than cardiovascular training for cardiovascular health. And I kind of take the position, and I don't really water anything down, and I think that's why I'm both loved and hated. Is like I say, there's really no such thing as cardio. Cardio is just shitty strength training that doesn't grow any muscle. Because really, we're using blood, we're contracting muscle. So what's really the difference? It's not like our body totally shifts gears and it's like a different thing. Like thinking and skeletal muscle contraction are different things. Cardio and strength as defined by the fitness industry, not that much. Just one's very high repetition focused and blood flow focused, and the other one is opposing. But they're really...
But isn't that the difference? Isn't that the difference between anaerobic and aerobic? I mean, isn't that what we're talking about here?
That's what we're talking about, yeah. But
yeah.
That's we're kind of splitting hairs. Like, it's still just contraction of muscle. So, like, that's why I say, like, do the most efficient thing to the muscle, which is strength training. And then you're going to get the cardio in. Now, if you want to be a distance runner, you've got to be a distance runner. You've got to run distance. There's no other way around it. Because you want the cortisol secretion. You want to diminish muscle mass. You want to store more body fat. That'll make you a better runner. But that's not really what people are looking for when they walk into the gym. Nobody walks in and goes, I really like to lose some muscle and get a little fat.
No, I get that, but don't you? And listen, this is not at all. One thing you'll realize about me, this is like I enjoy these conversations. I'm never combative. I'm never I'm never one who's sitting down in a conversation like this trying to, who's trying to be the smartest guy in the room. I like to learn. I like to, we'll leave this call and we're going to be on very good terms. But what about for the individual, say, and I love strength training, but there's a cost of doing business. At a certain point, there's so much strength training that your body is or is not going to respond to. Now, there's other things like, how are your joints feeling? How's your muscle recovering? What is going on? Now, when you look at someone who is just, and the majority of the people out there are sedentary, if someone's getting an hour worth of let's say lifting weights in the morning and they're sitting at their desk 7 hours in the afternoon, and then they're suddenly like, I want to get on a treadmill and I want to walk where my heart rate's at 120 or 130 beats a minute, and I just want to get some of that recovery going, and I want to, maybe burn some more fat calories and raise my BMR or whatever it is, whatever you want to call it. Do you think that's a bad thing?
No. I mean,
right.
It's not what I would do.
Right. What would you do?
Also, some people just like it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm not going to tell somebody I've the point of the book was documenting what's best.
Right.
But, there's a lot of things that are like the nutrition program I recommend in here. I expect 40% of the people who read it, and this is probably true of all nutrition books, just to go, well, I got to have my pizza, and they just, ignore it. But then, like, only a small percentage are going to do exactly what I do, which is pretty much eating one meal a day, all meat. And that's it.
So 1 meal a day, carnivore diet. You don't get any vegetables, any fruits, nothing, no micronutrients.
Nope.
No. How many? So how much meat are you eating in that one sitting?
Well, I've recently cut back and added bacterial fermentation for amino acids. But before I did that, it was like 3 pounds. 3 pounds of meat in 1 meal.
And what's the goal in mind? I'm just curious. When you're eating, is it just to stay alive? Is it for?
No, I'm trying
what's
to grow as much muscle as I can.
grow as much muscle as you can.
Yeah. Yeah. So
And I'm curious, how tall are you?
6 foot.
So you're 6'2", and you said 250?
240 right now.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Big boy. No, for someone trying to put muscle on. I mean, I'm 6'1", I'm 215. So I mean, that's, you outweigh me by 25 pounds. I mean, that's a lot.
Yeah.
And how do you think you're? Sorry, go ahead. I apologize.
Well, it's also like I'm 44 years old, so I really want to prove what can be done at my age, because we know that 20-year-olds can put on some muscle. We know 30-year-olds can put on some too, but 40s, not really. That's when you see bodybuilders like retiring, even with the drugs, they can't do it. And so I'm kind of beating the odds by doing what I'm doing. And like I want to see how far I can go, and then where it stops. Like, am I going to continue to grow after 240? Maybe. I don't know. I won't know till I get there, because my training is far better than 99% of the population. Basically, I mean, shameless self-plug here. My product is fucking awesome, so it works really well, and it's the only thing I do. So, it works for all the NFL players. They use it. The Miami Heat uses it. They endorse the book. There's another bunch of NBA players. Andre Drummond on the Pistons. That's his exclusive training program. A couple Olympic athletes. Baseball. A lot of different sports are using it. So, and you can't say the same thing about any other home fitness product. By the way, these are all people that are unpaid.
Can you talk to us about the product, though? I'd like to hear, Derek. I want to hear about the product.
Yeah. Likewise.
Yeah. So it's the strongest approach, and I don't mean strongest as in you get stronger. I mean the greatest amount of variance in variable resistance type exercise. So a lot of people who like bench press with variable resistance, they'll put bands on the bar and they'll be holding it, on their chest, and they've got X here, and then they go to 1.2X at the top. Well, what we have is more like X at the bottom and 5X at the top. So like, for example, when I'm doing chest press, I'm holding 100 pounds at the bottom, but just short of lockout, I'm holding 540 pounds. And I even have videos where I have a load cell in that load chain and show the digital output of how much force I'm creating. So like you go from 100 to 540, and that's like, 200, 300 in the middle. And it goes up very quickly, very steep strength curve. So that's what the outputs of the human body are. And I demonstrated that in one of my own studies, but that's been demonstrated in a bunch of other studies. So there's 16 other studies that have been done on variable resistance, and all of them have positive outcomes. And the ones that show higher levels of variance are the ones that come out with the best result. And I think the only reason, and this stretches back to the 90s, and so the reason I think that nobody had come up with a product, other than nobody really probably thought about it, was no one really knew the right amount of variance. Like, what is it? Is it X and 1.2X? Or is it X and 3X? Like, no one really was able to land on that. And I think like Arthur Jones tried to narrow that down with his cam for the Nautilus machines, but he was still just kind of shot in the dark. And I think he was X and 1.3X. So yeah,
This sounds like training with chains and bands, though. Pretty much, that's what you're pretty much referring to in a way.
well, the chains and bands are they're the wrong level. There's not a high enough level of variance, because it's like if we have 16 studies that show by adding variance you get more, and then with weights you get less than this other thing. What's the variable that matters? Is it weight or is it variance? Obviously, it's variance. So what's the right rate of variance?
And when you're saying variance, and I apologize, when you're saying variance, you mean 100 pounds at the bottom and 500 pounds at the top. You want to see a wider discrepancy between where the weight is at the head, at the hardest point, and you want that weight to increase. You want to have the largest increase in weight as the lift's getting lighter.
Right, because then we can fatigue the body in a diminishing range. So we can fatigue the impact ready range, or the stronger range, a lot of people call it. I called it impact ready when I developed my medical device, which is how this whole thing got started. That's called OsteoStrong. It treats osteoporosis. It's the most effective osteoporosis treatment in the world. And it's found in 140 clinics in 8 different countries. It's kind of an expensive machine, though, so I don't talk about it on podcasts. It's like $125,000. I mean, it's not like your listeners are going to get.
God, I
I'll
can't
get
fucking
2 of
hold
those
it
for
after.
Christmas.
No, I'm sorry. That's we're gonna lose it now. 125 grand.
Well, it's a medical device to treat a disease state.
Oh, okay.
Osteoporosis, which kills as many people as breast cancer. So,
would that be something? There. Would that be something you could use like in the International Space Station, where they do have bone density issues?
That's a good point.
Yeah, wrote a paper with some NASA physicians recently, and that should publish in a couple months. It's in peer review now.
So let me ask you, and not to jump off the topic, but several times you said, people either love me or hate me. So you feel like that your conversation with like when you were sitting down with us today, were you kind of hesitant? Were you like, well, what direction is this going to go? I mean, I know you don't give a shit.
It's okay, because people have hard questions for me, and I prefer to get the hard questions because I have answers. And so I'd rather somebody see a podcast where there's like a real conversation. Like sometimes the podcaster is like already an X3 user and they've already put on 15 pounds of muscle or something like that. So it's pretty much just like praise in the podcast. That's cool. I mean, it certainly makes my day. That's easy. Yeah. And I like passing it around, but like I'd rather be criticized because I can come up with answers. Like I know the research backwards and forwards. So yeah, somebody is like, well, what about this? And then I give the answer. There's actually one guy I did a podcast with. I won't mention his name because I don't want to give a clown the clicks. But this guy, like, he asked me what he thought were really hard questions, and I just fired off the research. And he was like, well, I never really thought about that, or I've never seen that study, or like I was totally caught flat-footed. But he was on the attack the whole time. And, it's a better podcast. I even told him, I'm like, thanks for not, giving me the standard questions. I thought it was pretty cool. But then this guy goes and makes a video afterward. And then he just says like, oh, I think this and I think that. And it was like just his opinion on what I said. But I already disproved it with science, everything he said. So like, not only was the guy a little bitch for like hiding, from me and, not having me on the second part, but then it was just like, he just was giving his opinion. So it's like, what a dickhead. And like all the comments were just people were like, you're a loser. Like you weren't prepared to ask tough questions. So yeah, but all of that shit gives me sales because they listen to me and then listen to the other guy. And they're like, well, Jaquish knows what he's talking about. So I ought to get one of those things. Or I ought to read the book. Maybe there's somebody still skeptical. Read the book. It's like $6 on Kindle.
So the book is, basically, what was the name of the book again?
Weightlifting is a waste of time, and so is cardio.
But hold on, but I thought you resistance train, right?
Ah, yes. I did not call the book Resistance Training as a waste of time.
Right.
I call it Weightlifting is a waste of time.
Right. You said
Yeah, I
weightlifting,
mean,
but you
it's
said
like
yeah.
you you got to get people's attention. Dr. Baker really loves the title of the book. He brags about it all the time. He's a big X3 user too. You know Dr. Sean Baker, the carnivore guy?
Oh,
Yeah.
I know the carnivore guy. I was unsure that that was his name, but if he's referred to as the carnivore guy, right?
Well, both
He's the
him
one who
and
published the book. He did he publish the Carnivore Diet?
yeah,
Yeah. Okay. I know exactly. I know the book is what I'm saying.
he's a big X3 user, and he endorsed the book. We get great endorsements. Forrest Griffin wrote the foreword of the book, former light heavyweight champion. We got a NASA endorsement, the Miami Heat, Ben Greenfield. It was great endorsements for the book, and Dr. Baker. And he said, you know, you could have called the book like the better band training method or something like that, or the better, you know, variable resistance is the future. And yeah, you would have sold a couple, but nobody really cared. When you call it weightlifting is a waste of time, you're basically walking around and, you know, walking up to a bunch of people and kicking them in the nuts. And that's kind of my style. Like I played rugby. Like I don't fucking care. Like well, I'm either going to win or I'm going to lose, but I came to win. So
do you have a picture? I want to see what this thing looks like. Derek, do you have anything? Do you have does any
Oh,
thank you.
Nice.
So can you walk us through this right now?
So the 540-pound band, so it's an Olympic bar. So these rotate, but my hand can always stay neutral. So I can be grabbing this and I can be going through not a full range of motion. We don't lock out. I mean, people who care about muscle growth shouldn't really lock out. I mean, unless you're a power lifter and your job is a lockout. But really, what's a power lifter? About 99.9% of them are just fat guys with gym memberships. Yeah. So you go through a range of motion and you don't lock out at the top. You keep constant tension. And then right here is the bottom. You don't need like a super stretch. That's bullshit. That's been disproven. So you go through a nice, slow and controlled range of motion, pushing a little bit of a decline. It's easier on the shoulder joint. And you still get the same pectoral activation. And so I'm 540 pounds here, let's say 300 pounds here and 100 pounds here. So I go until I can't go any longer to get to that 540. Now I'm just doing shorter reps until I can't get there anymore. My last couple repetitions may only be 1 inch. So that's how that works. And, you know, when you do a squat, it's a front squat. I did not do it in a dress shirt because I'm just about to rip this one.
So you're pretty much completely fatiguing everything in every point of the range of motion of that movement. It's basically what you're saying. So what are you going in and hitting? Like you're basically, you're probably not even warming up. Or are you doing a feeler set and then you're just going and attacking one set? Or are you just going in and just saying, all right, I'm just.
Because the weight gets so high at the top.
Yeah.
Which is what matches our biomechanics. You go slow and controlled and you do much higher repetitions. So, and also think where joint injury and soreness occurs, that's going to be at the bottom of the movement. Like your joints don't get sore because of what you do at the top of the movement. It's the bottom. So when we lighten the bottom, we can still go to fatigue by using diminishing range, but we don't have to give ourselves any joint damage. So
how is this translated? Like, have you ever gone back into the gym and have you gone under a typical bench press, dumbbell press, pull up, squat, something to be able to relate what you're working on with things that you might have done, 10, 15 years ago? And have you seen, like, can you talk to us about that a little bit?
Well, I mean, the first 2 years I put on 45 pounds of muscle. So I was way stronger. But that's a great question because when, like, you can become stronger, but lose the ability or diminish the ability for a skill. And so like if a baseball pitcher goes and puts on a little bit of muscle and keeps pitching, he'll pitch faster. But if a baseball pitcher doesn't pitch for 2 years, lifts, is he going to be a better pitcher? No, he's going to be worse because he didn't keep that firing pattern. Golf, that's another perfect example. Like, you've got that firing pattern, and it, you know, sometimes, like, if you don't play golf for a while, like, it's not quite right, and you got to get back into it. So I wouldn't just jump under a bar with weights on it. In fact,
I get it.
Yeah. So, like, sometimes people are like, my bench press went down. I'm like, bench press, you know, twice a week for like a month, and then see where you are. Because, like, you let's say you did a year of X3, you put on muscle, but you're not working on the skill of the bench press, because that's a neurological thing. I just tell people, you know, be mindful of that. Also, like, my goal isn't to be better at the sport of the bench press. I don't care what I bench press. My goal is to be as strong and as lean as possible. How I get there makes no difference. I'm just going the most efficient path. And that's kind of the market that's out there. Like, there's a group of people that really is interested in, like, how much they bench. Okay. I mean, they'll do better if they mix X3 in with their training, but they still have to do that training. It's sort of like, if you want to be a distance runner, you got to run distance, that kind of thing.
Yeah, like Tom Brady has kind of popularized the use of bands for his training, and he talks about it not making him stiff and sore and all that. And is that obviously something that you're doing with some of the athletes you're working with?
You ever seen a video of Tom Brady using the X3?
Oh, he actually uses the product.
I won't say yes or no. I was just wondering if you've seen one. Or Dwayne Johnson? Seen that?
No. Well, I know Dwayne. I mean, yeah. I mean, listen, Dwayne loves his Iron Paradise, and he likes.
He does. He does.
He does. I mean, Brady's on a different level because Brady clearly. I can't see anything with him doing any weight. I'm sorry, weight training. Excuse me, but resistance training he is doing. But
yeah, it's difficult getting, like, the endorsements. So, like, when there's a few, like, best in the world type athletes that use X3, and I was like, hey, you know, can I use you on my website? I can't offer you anything because I want to be able to say I didn't pay you, but all I want to do is put a small picture, you know, like 1 inch by 1 inch on the website. And a lot of athletes have been really cool about that. They're like, yeah, I love the product. Absolutely, go for it. They're like, yeah, no, just don't put it in ads or anything. Okay. You know, because if I get somebody to the website, then they see all these pro athletes using it. They're like, I don't know, well, these guys are some of the best in the world. They wouldn't be screwing around with it if it were stupid. So clearly it works. But some of the really top guys, I mean, like, best in basketball, best in football in the world, they really want some outlandish stuff. Like, you know, half the company kind of thing, which is what one of these best in the world guys wanted. And I was like, no, not a chance.
I get it. I think I mean, now we're switching the conversation to a business talk. It's just like, you could have the best, you know, product in the world, and if no one's marketing it, like, you know, you're never going to make a penny on it, you know? So it's like, all right, well, am I better off owning 1% of a billion, or am I better off owning 99% of 100? And I think that's where only you can make that decision.
Right. Because I know I'm not having trouble selling it. I think one of the smartest things I did was I made myself the model, because when I started, I was, like, not big and chubby. And so I lost 16 pounds of body fat and put on 45 pounds of muscle.
What's your body fat now, if you don't mind me asking?
Last measured 8%.
8%.
8%. Yeah. So I'm, like, in the same condition as some of the running backs that I work with.
Interesting.
And what's the price of the product? Because I think it's important to get that out there as well.
Yeah, it's $550. So, like, for an actual home gym that does something, you know, not like some plastic handles and a piece of yarn or whatever, you know, whatever's being passed off as a home fitness product today. I think it's the cheapest home gym there is that actually does something, because you can get a power rack and and bands and weights and all kinds of stuff. But you're looking at like, you get something good, you're looking at $3,000 to $7,000. This is $550, and when you're done, it fits in a drawer. There's also a foot plate, a ground plate that you stand on that acts as a second ground, so the bands can travel, like for a deadlift, squat, overhead press, all those movements. So your ankles are protected.
And how many bands come with it? How many bands come with the unit?
4, and then there's an extra one for incredibly strong people. By the way, by incredibly strong, like most of the NFL players can't handle it. And they're some of the strongest people in the world. So I basically did that band as kind of like, anybody says, oh, band training is for sissies.
It's like an FU kind of thing.
Yeah, I'm like, okay, show me how to do a chest press with this. And, of course, I can do 20 of them, and they can't do one. So I'm like, so you're an expert, right?
Has it been selling well during COVID because of, there's been a run on weights and gym equipment? And have you been,
I mean, I hate admitting that because this whole thing sucks. But yeah, I mean, people are going to have to work out at home. I think there's like a general attitude, like home cooking products are selling really well. Because people are like, who knows when we'll be able to go to a restaurant? Maybe we'll only be able to go back 1 week, and then, like somebody will sneeze, and then we'll shut the whole country down again. So, like it's sort of like I'll just take care of this myself. I'll work out at home. I'll eat at home. I'll have friends over, whatever. Yeah. So
and once we can travel again, I assume you can travel pretty easily with this device.
Oh yeah. I keep one in my suitcase.
It seems lightweight. It seems simple.
Yeah. The whole thing weighs 15 pounds. Yeah. This is like 8 pounds. It's solid steel in the middle, anodized aluminum on the exterior.
I don't think anyone can argue, whether it works or not, because, this is a form of resistance training. This is a form of band training that you pretty much have just, in my opinion, probably have anchored better than 99% of the other products out there. I mean, I
love that explanation. That's great.
Yeah, I think if anyone's going to turn around and they're going to say, oh, this is bullshit, it doesn't work, then I think they need to assess what they know about, the anatomy and fitness, et cetera, but, I think you start getting into some weird conversations about, 45 pounds of muscle in a year. It's a lot of muscle.
It's a lot of muscle.
It's a lot of muscle to do. And, then you're obviously going to have your skeptics out there going to say, well, was there any type of TRT involved in there? Was there any type of, performance enhancing?
I'm a TRT patient.
What's that?
But I love when somebody says, well, what's the amount of TRT? And I'm like,
well, I would never ask that. I mean, I would never ask that.
I know you wouldn't.
I wouldn't, because I think it's like an irrelevant question. It's like, what do you, it's like
if it's beyond a natural amount, then it's not an amount of TRT.
Right.
It's an amount of performance enhancing drugs.
So can we shift gears on that? Can you start talking about that a little bit? Because you're obviously well-versed in it, if you don't mind.
Yeah, I was in a bad rugby accident. You're supposed to, well, everybody says to wear a cup in rugby, but hard to sprint with that. So nobody really does. You just sort of, hope I don't get hit in the crotch. Well, I did. And so I got banged up pretty bad. I started having cardiac problems. I was having like palpitations. Like I'd be on the rugby field and all of a sudden covered in sweat, my heart's just like short beats. I just collapse on my knees. I'm like, God, what the hell's going on? And so I go to a cardiologist and they're like, your heart muscles are really weak. And I'm like, play rugby. It's 80 minutes of sprinting and stopping. Like, what are you talking about? And so I was like, your echo doesn't look good. Like sonogram of the heart. And so guy says, I'm going to send you to an endocrinologist and we're going to do all the panels, but I think you're low in testosterone. I'm like, there's no way, because I was pretty strong. I was small. I weighed 160 pounds. And this was when I was like 25. No, a little older, maybe 26, 27. And then so I had 163 nanograms to the deciliter. Now normal is between 800 and 1200 nanograms to the deciliter. So they're like, your testosterone is so low, you may have a heart attack in your 30s. And so I was like, because apparently there's as many testosterone receptors in the heart as there are in all the rest of the muscles combined. So that's the largest receptor. And this is why I like people who use incredible amounts of testosterone, they have cardiac problems because their heart gets enlarged. Coincidentally, drug-free athletes get an enlarged heart too that are focused on strength. I think it just has to do with regulating testosterone receptors. So I don't want to really blame that necessarily on exogenous testosterone. But so then I got the prescription and start now. Testosterone replacement therapy, as defined by WebMD, is different than steroid use because it's a replacement dosage. It's replacing what's supposed to be there. And that's all it is. So there's no amount. It's the amount that's right for you to replace what's not there. And since my natural production was just destroyed, then I got the prescription and I went back to a normal level of testosterone. But it didn't do anything. I think I might have put on maybe 5 pounds of muscle in the next few years. So like I felt better. My heart felt better. My rugby game got a lot better, but there wasn't a huge muscle mass moment. And this was when I was 28 and I started X3 after turning 40. So, big difference.
Yeah, I've certainly had a number of friends who've had testicular cancer, and then they've had to do the same thing. So, they're doing pretty well right now. So,
nice.
Very interesting. All right. I mean, I thought it was incredibly cool. Can you, Derek? Do you have anything else?
No, I just want to, get some information out to our listeners about how to get in touch with John and follow and see more pictures on the beach with Ferraris. And
the Ferrari pictures are all about them trying to get me to sell my Lamborghini.
Oh. Right.
Most of the pictures are with my Lambo, so I have the Lamborghini. Yeah, Ferrari just doesn't make a fast car anymore. I don't know what's wrong. Like they make beautiful cars, but like the naturally aspirated V10 in the Lamborghini, there's nothing like it. Like I shake the ground when I walk into a parking structure. It's awesome. It's like I'm riding a fucking dinosaur. Scream. I love it.
Good for you, man. So, Dr. Jaquish, can you let our listeners know where they can find you, your Instagram, and where they can find your product?
Yes. I put everything on one landing page, so I didn't have to give out like 10 websites.
Perfect.
It's drj.com. DOCTOR, the letter J.com.
Wow.
I'm jealous to begin with. That's how easy is that?
Well, apparently Julius Erving is just fishing now. So he didn't need it.
Charge his ass if he wants it. Don't give it up.
I wouldn't.
No, that's too good.
I would give it up for $1 million.
Yeah, good for you.
It's a $1 million URL. Beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. There's great pictures of me there.
Awesome. Well, listen, it was such a pleasure having you on. We were very entertaining.
Thanks
really
for
nice.
asking real questions, because that's where the real skeptic is. Because getting to people who are just like already fans, it's like, all right, well, they're already fans. Like, I already won these guys over. I want people to hear this podcast and be like, Jake was crying, son of a bitch, I hate it. And then they're listening and they're like, yeah. Those were
listen. We've seen. Listen, between Derek and I, we've been in this industry a long time, and that's why it's we've seen a lot of stuff, and I think that's why I've gotten to the point in my career. I'm 43 years old. I listen a lot better than I did maybe 10 years ago, and it's interesting to hear experiences and things you've gone through and how you're building your business. And there were a lot of like I can understand how people out there want to get combative. I mean, some of the things skeptics are going to kind of, what is that?
And my style is to kick them in the nuts.
Right.
I'm actually trying to do that. I want to piss off more people.
Right.
because then they asked the questions and I got the answers.
Right.
So, you know,
just get me that answer. Just get me that answer on the sweet spot when it came down to a high intensity interval training. That's the answer that you owe me. All right.
I can definitely
one answer I want. What?
I can definitely find that.
Find that, because you know it is an interesting question, because we start getting into now, and before we start getting into the topic of high intensity interval training. And at what point it's like, okay, well, we can, and I've heard certain coaches, well, you can maintain a max speed sprint for say 4 seconds or 5 seconds or 6 seconds, whatever that number is. So anything that you can't maintain max intensity for isn't high intensity. Well, I understand that outlook, but are you getting your heart rate up to a max intensity zone when you are doing that type of training?
Oh, yeah.
How many repeats would you have to do to get your heart rate up to that point? So what are we looking at here?
Right. Oh, because it's like your heart rate's going up and your speed may be going up, but I think this is happening. You know, they're crossing each other, and
right.
even after you slow down, your heart rate still goes up.
Oh yeah, of course.
For 10 seconds.
Of course, but
yeah,
you know,
you got to pump blood to recover the muscle.
But my question is, are we measuring high intensity training by how high the heart rate's getting, or are we measuring it by, you know, how much output are we requiring the body to produce? Because those may be different answers at different times.
I would think so. Like again, going back to the cheetah, it does about a 15-second run on its hunt, and then it takes 35 minutes for it to recover before it can pull the carcass into a tree.
That's incredible.
And then it takes 3 days for it to recover so it could do the next thing. So I don't know what its heart rate is, but it certainly needs that recovery time after that effort.
That's incredible. So incredible.
I would
it's interesting.
Yeah.
We don't need an answer now. I mean, I think I'm still trying to figure it out.
I'm thinking about how I would find the answer, and I think I know. I think what I would look for is blood over time, blood moved over time, and what the highest rate of blood flow, like let's say per minute, would be in different protocols. That's how you would identify that. That's how I'd try and identify.
Blood flow to the organs, or blood flow to the muscles?
Just aortic wave, just heart pumping. Oh. Because it's hard to determine, you know where everything's going. You know, I mean, you could do that with
makes sense.
With an MRI. If that study exists, blood flow by a minute. Let me work on this. I bet you the data's out there.
Yeah, we'd love to hear. Listen, we would love.
I bet you nobody's described it like you're describing it. So that could be.
How about this? When if you find out, shoot Derek and I a message, and let's get you back on to talk about it. I think that'd be a lot of fun.
That'd be awesome. All right,
do this again. This was a trip today. I had a good time with it. Maybe we'll come in with some more difficult questions next time.
Great, I love it.
Dr. Awesome. Jaquish, thank you so much, man. Such a pleasure having you on.
Thank you very much.
Bye, guys.
Bye bye.